The general's laughter still echoed across the steel deck when he called her rifle dead weight you'll never use. 72 hours later, 12 Marines were bleeding out on a hostile beach 3 kilometers away, and Chief Petty Officer Elena Voss was the only person on Earth who could reach them. One shot. One impossible distance. Wind howling at 40 knots across open ocean. Every expert said no. Every calculation said impossible, but Elena had spent her entire life being told what she couldn't do, and she was about to prove them all catastrophically wrong. Before we begin, I need you to do something. Stay with me until the very end of this story. Hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Elena's story travels across the world. The North Atlantic had no mercy in October. Chief Petty Officer Elena Voss stood at attention on the flight deck of the USS Titan, a Wasp-class amphibious assault ship cutting through 12-foot swells like a blade through flesh. Salt spray stung her face. Wind tore at her uniform. Around her, 200 personnel stood in formation. Marines, sailors, officers, all perfectly still despite the ship's rolling motion. All of them watching her. Elena kept her eyes locked forward, refusing to acknowledge the weight pressing against her shoulder. The Barrett Mate 2A, one rifle hung across her back, 30 pounds of precision steel that suddenly felt like a millstone. "Chief Voss," Major General Harlan Creel's voice cut through the wind like a serrated edge. He stood 10 feet away, hands clasped behind his back, his chest covered in ribbons that caught the gray morning light. 60 years old, 38 years of service. A man who'd commanded thousands and buried hundreds. A man who didn't suffer fools. "Yes, sir." Elena's voice was steady. She'd learned that trick in boot camp, how to sound confident even when your stomach was eating itself. Creel stepped closer, his boots ringing on the non-skid deck. He was a big man, 6'2" and broad, with a face like weathered granite. "That's quite the weapon you're carrying, Chief." "Yes, sir." "Heavy, isn't it?" "Manageable, sir." A ripple of quiet laughter spread through the formation. Elena felt it like needles against her skin, but kept her expression flat. Behind Creel, she could see other officers smirking. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, Captain Morrison, Master Sergeant Booker, a hulking man with a shaved head who'd never bothered to hide his disdain for support personnel. Creel walked a slow circle around her, inspecting. The Barrett M82, 50 caliber. Effective range about 1,800 meters under optimal conditions. He paused directly in front of her. "Tell me, Chief, when exactly do you plan on using that thing?" "When the situation requires it, sir." "The situation." Creel's tone shifted, just slightly. "We're conducting a maritime interdiction operation, Chief. Fast boats. Close quarters, urban terrain." He gestured toward the weapon. "You planning on shooting someone from a mile away?" More laughter, louder this time. Elena's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed level. "I believe in being prepared for any contingency, sir." "Contingency." Creel repeated the word like he was tasting something sour. "You know what I believe in, Chief? I believe in speed, efficiency, operators who carry exactly what they need and nothing more." He tapped the barrel of her rifle with one finger. "This is dead weight, 30 pounds you could use for ammunition, medical supplies, actual useful gear." The wind howled between them. Somewhere below deck, hydraulics groaned as the ship's elevator cycled. Elena met his eyes. "Respectfully, sir. You're an intelligence specialist, Chief." Creel's voice dropped lower, harder. "Your job is analysis, data collection. You sit in air-conditioned rooms and compile reports for people who actually do the fighting." He leaned in slightly. "So why are you out here playing soldier with equipment you'll never use?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Behind her, Elena could hear whispers, feel eyes boring into her back. Every operator on this deck had earned their place through blood and broken bones. She knew what they thought, that she was a paper pusher trying to look tough, an analyst with delusions of grandeur. They weren't entirely wrong. "General Creel, if I may..." Commander Sarah Chen stepped forward from the officer line. She was Elena's direct superior, 35, whip-smart, with a reputation for protecting her people. Chief Voss completed advanced marksmanship training at Quantico last year, top of her class. Her presence on this operation was specifically requested by... "I didn't ask you, Commander," Creel didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Elena. I asked the chief. Chen's mouth pressed into a thin line, but she stepped back. Creel waited. Elena took a slow breath. The ship rolled beneath her feet and she shifted her weight automatically, maintaining balance. Around her she could feel the formation watching, some curious, some hostile, some simply entertained by the spectacle. Sir, she said quietly, I carry this rifle because I'm the best person on this ship who can use it. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but when the impossible shot needs to be taken, I'm the one who can make it. Silence. Then Creel laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. It was the kind of laugh that came from a man who'd seen 1,000 cocky kids talk themselves into body bags. The impossible shot. He shook his head. Chief, I've been in this business since before you were born. I've worked with Delta, DevGru, Scout Snipers, the best shooters on the planet. And you know what they all have in common? He didn't wait for an answer. Humility. Because they know that combat isn't a shooting range. It's chaos. And all the training in the world doesn't mean a damn thing when the bullets start flying. He stepped back, addressing the entire formation now. His voice carried across the deck, amplified by the wind. Listen up. This operation is about precision and speed. We go in hard. We neutralize the target. We extract. No showboating. No unnecessary risks. No wasted effort. His eyes flicked back to Elena. And no dead weight. The message was clear. Elena stood perfectly still, her face betraying nothing. Inside, something cold and familiar settled into her chest. She'd felt it before. In high school, when coaches told her girls didn't belong in certain sports. In the Navy, when instructors assumed she'd wash out. In every room where men talked over her like she was furniture. She'd learned to convert that feeling into fuel. Creel dismissed the formation with a sharp gesture. Department heads, briefing in 30 minutes. Everyone else, prepare for insertion. We hit the target at 0400 tomorrow. The crowd dispersed quickly, eager to escape the wind and the tension. Elena started to move, but a hand caught her arm. Master Sergeant Booker. Up close, he was even more imposing, 6'5", probably 260, with scars crossing his knuckles and a face that had stopped more punches than a heavy bag. Hey, Chief. His voice was gravel and diesel fumes. Real talk. Why are you even here? Elena pulled her arm free. Same reason you are, Sergeant, to do my job. Nah, he shook his head. My job is to breach doors and eliminate threats. Your job is to sit behind a computer and tell me where to breach. Big difference. Then why are you worried about what I carry? Booker's eyes narrowed. Behind him, 3 other Marines had stopped, waiting to see how this played out. Lance Corporal Rodriguez, a skinny kid from Texas. Sergeant Kim, a quiet woman built like a coiled spring. Corporal Davis, whose baby face hid a violent talent for close-quarters combat. I'm worried, Booker said slowly, because when shit goes sideways, I need to know everyone around me can handle themselves, that they're not going to freeze up or slow us down or get someone killed because they're carrying 30 pounds of useless metal. Elena adjusted the rifle strap on her shoulder. I won't slow you down. Yeah? You ever been in a gunfight, Chief? Real one, not a range qual. She paused. No. Then you don't know what you'll do. None of us do until it happens. He leaned closer. So here's my advice. Lose the rifle. Carry a sidearm like everyone else. Because if things go loud and you're fumbling with that thing, you become a liability. And I don't protect liabilities. He walked away without waiting for a response. His team followed, their boots echoing on the deck. Elena stood alone in the wind, watching them go. Don't let him get to you. She turned. Commander Chen had circled back, her expression sympathetic but weary. He's not wrong, Elena said quietly. He's not entirely right either. But Chen glanced around to make sure they were alone. Look, between us, Creel doesn't want you on this op. Never did. He thinks intelligence personnel should stay in the TOC, not run missions. But JSOC specifically requested you because of your analytical skills. Your ability to read terrain, calculate firing solutions under pressure, that's not something we can just replace. Doesn't matter if no one trusts me to use it. Then make them trust you. Chen's voice hardened slightly. You earned your place here, Elena. Don't forget that. and don't let their doubts become your own. She left before Elena could respond. The deck was nearly empty now. Just a few sailors securing gear, their movements efficient and automatic. Overhead, gray clouds churned like something alive. Elena walked to the port rail and stared out at the endless ocean. Somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, hostile forces were moving. The mission briefing had been clear. A high-value target was meeting with arms dealers on a small island off the coast of an unnamed country. The USS Titan was the insertion platform. Marines would fast rope from helicopters, secure the compound, extract or eliminate the target. Standard operation, except nothing was ever standard. Elena had reviewed the intelligence a dozen times, studied satellite imagery, analyzed weather patterns. Something felt wrong about this mission, but she couldn't articulate what. Just a weight in her gut that wouldn't go away. She pulled out a small waterproof notebook from her pocket, the same one she'd carried through every deployment, pages filled with calculations, wind charts, ballistic tables. She'd started keeping it in sniper school, when instructors said she'd never make it past the first week. That was 7 years ago. Now she could calculate a firing solution faster than most people could use a ballistic computer, could read wind like other people read books, could put a round through a target at distances that made experienced shooters nervous. But none of that mattered if no one believed her. "Yo, Chief!" Elena looked up. Rodriguez was jogging toward her, his rifle bouncing against his chest. "Commander Chen wants you in the TOC, some kind of update on tomorrow's op." "Copy that." Elena pushed off the rail. "Rodriguez, can I ask you something?" The kid stopped, surprised. Sure? What do you think about me being here?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I mean, honestly?" "Honestly." Rodriguez scratched the back of his neck. "I think you're probably good at what you do. Intel stuff, right? Breaking down patterns and whatever, but..." He hesitated. "Look, no offense, but when we're clearing rooms and people are shooting back, I don't think about analysis. I think about who's covering my six. And I don't know you well enough to trust that." "Fair enough. But hey," he offered a crooked smile. "Maybe you'll surprise us, right?" "Maybe." He jogged off toward the superstructure. Elena followed more slowly, her boots ringing on the metal deck. As she walked, she caught her reflection in a porthole. A woman in her early 30s, average height, lean build, dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, face that could disappear in a crowd. Nothing special. That's what her instructors had said anyway. "You're not built for this, Voss. Not strong enough, not fast enough. Find something else." She'd proven them wrong through sheer stubbornness, outworked everyone, outsmarted the tests, turned her supposed weaknesses into advantages, because when you weren't strong enough to muscle through problems, you had to think your way around them. The Tactical Operations Center was buried deep in the ship's gut, a climate-controlled room filled with monitors, radios, and the constant hum of electronic warfare equipment. A dozen personnel worked at various stations, tracking friendly forces, monitoring enemy communications, updating tactical maps. Commander Chen stood at the central display table, surrounded by officers. She waved Elena over. "Chief, we've got updated satellite imagery from the target area." She pulled up a series of photos on the large monitor. These were taken 4 hours ago. Elena studied the images carefully. The compound sat on a rocky peninsula, 3 buildings arranged in a loose triangle surrounded by high walls. A small dock jutted into the ocean. Hills rose behind it, covered in scrub and rock. "What's the change?" Elena asked. "Look at the north building." Chen zoomed in. "See those antennas? Those weren't there yesterday." Elena leaned closer. The antennas were sophisticated, definitely not commercial equipment. Communications array, high-end stuff. Exactly, which means they're expecting company, or coordinating something larger. Captain Morrison spoke up from across the table. "Could be nothing. Criminals love their toys." "Could be," Chen agreed, but SIGINT picked up increased encrypted traffic in the area. Someone's talking to someone, and they don't want us listening. Elena traced the compound's perimeter with her eyes, noting sight lines and approaches. "The insertion plan has us coming from the west, correct? Fast ropes onto the central courtyard?" Correct. That puts us in a potential crossfire if they have shooters in both the north and south buildings. We'd be exposed for at least 30 seconds during the rope descent. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, a wiry man with a permanent scowl, shook his head. We've run this scenario 100 times, Chief. The Marines know what they're doing. I'm not questioning their competence. I'm questioning the assumption that we'll achieve surprise. We hit them at 0400. They'll be asleep. Will they? Elena pointed at the antennas again. This level of communication infrastructure suggests they're either expecting an attack or planning one. Either way, they're alert. Morrison sighed. Chief, we appreciate your input, but tactical planning isn't really your domain. The words landed like a slap. Elena kept her face neutral, but Chen's expression darkened. Chief Voss is part of this planning team, Chen said coldly. Her assessment carries weight. Of course, Commander. Morrison didn't sound convinced. I'm just saying we can't redesign the entire operation based on a few new antennas. Elena bit back her response. She'd learned that arguing with officers who'd already made up their minds was like trying to stop the ocean with your hands. Noted, she said quietly. The briefing continued for another 20 minutes. Weather updates, equipment checks, contingency plans. Elena contributed when asked, stayed silent when not. By the time they finished, her jaw ached from clenching. She left the TOC and headed down to the berthing area, a maze of narrow corridors and stacked bunks where enlisted personnel slept in shifts. Her rack was in a far corner, surrounded by the racks of other female sailors. Most were empty now, their occupants on duty. Elena climbed into her bunk and lay back, staring at the underside of the rack above her. Someone had taped a photo there. A smiling family at a beach somewhere sunny and far away. She pulled out her notebook again and opened it to a blank page, started writing. Numbers flowed from her pencil like water. Wind calculations, elevation adjustments, temperature gradients. She worked through scenarios in her head, different distances, different conditions. Her mind organized chaos into clean equations, turned uncertainty into probability. This was where she felt safe. In the math, in the precision. Footsteps approached, light and quick. Hey! Petty Officer Second Class Jamie Park dropped onto the bunk across from Elena's. She was a combat medic, 26, with quick hands and quicker wit. One of the few people on this ship who treated Elena like a human instead of a curiosity. Heard you got roasted at the formation this morning. News travels fast. News travels at the speed of gossip, which is faster than light, Jamie grinned. For what it's worth, I think Creel's an asshole. He's a general. Generals can be assholes. The two aren't mutually exclusive. She pulled off her boots with a grunt. You doing okay? Elena closed her notebook. Define okay. Fair point. Jamie was quiet for a moment. You know what I think? I think they're scared of you. Scared? Of me? Yeah, because you're good at something they don't understand. They can wrap their heads around physical strength, speed, aggression. That's the language they speak. But you? She gestured at Elena's notebook. You're playing a different game. You see things they can't see, and that makes them uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable isn't the same as being scared, isn't it? Jamie stretched out on her rack. Fear and discomfort are cousins, Elena. They just dress different. Before Elena could respond, the ship's 1MC system crackled to life. Now hear this. All hands, prepare for flight quarters. I say again, prepare for flight quarters. Pilots and air crews, man your aircraft. The words echoed through the steel corridors. Jamie sat up. That's earlier than scheduled. Elena checked her watch. 2100 hours. They weren't supposed to launch until 0330. Something had changed. She dropped from her rack and headed for the door. Jamie followed. The passageways were suddenly full of personnel moving with purpose. Marines grabbing gear, aircrew rushing toward the flight deck, officers shouting orders. The organized chaos of a ship going to combat stations. Elena pushed through the crowd until she found Commander Chen near the ladder well. Her superior's face was tight with stress. Commander, what's happening? Chen pulled her aside, lowering her voice beneath the noise. The timelines moved up. SIGINT intercepted communications indicating the target is leaving the compound in 3 hours. If we don't hit them now, we lose our window. 3 hours? We don't have a choice. The Marines are spinning up now. We launch in 45 minutes. Elena's mind raced. The plan was built around hitting them in the dark, when they'd be least alert. If we go now... I know. Chen's voice was grim. But orders are orders. Get your gear. You're riding in the second bird as planned. Commander, this is wrong. Something about this whole situation... I know, Elena. Chen met her eyes. I know, but we're locked in now, so we adapt. She squeezed Elena's shoulder once, then disappeared into the crowd. Elena stood frozen in the corridor for 3 heartbeats. Then she ran. Her gear was already packed, a habit from too many emergency drills. She grabbed her assault pack, chest rig, helmet, checked her sidearm, a Sig Sauer M18, secured her radio. Then she reached for the Barrett. The rifle was massive in her hands. 30 pounds of precision engineering. She'd spent hundreds of hours with this weapon, knew every groove and mechanism, could break it down blindfolded, could hit targets most people couldn't even see. She slung it across her back and headed for the flight deck. Outside, night had fallen. The deck was a controlled storm of activity, helicopters spinning up, rotors beating the air into submission. Marines loaded equipment, checked weapons, moved with the practiced efficiency of professionals. Elena spotted her bird, a CH-53E Super Stallion, its massive frame crouched like a predator. She jogged toward it, the Barrett bouncing against her spine. Voss! Master Sergeant Booker appeared out of the darkness, his team falling in behind him. Even in the chaos, he moved with absolute certainty. You're with us, he shouted over the rotor noise. Stick close, stay out of the way, and if shit goes sideways, don't be a hero. Elena nodded. They loaded onto the helicopter, squeezing into the troop seats along both sides. 22 personnel crammed into a space designed for 20. The interior smelled like hydraulic fluid and old sweat. The crew chief gave a thumbs up. The engines screamed. The deck dropped away. Elena watched the USS Titan shrink beneath them, a floating city of steel becoming a toy in the darkness. Around her, Marines checked equipment one final time. Rodriguez was pale, his hands trembling slightly. Kim's eyes were closed, lips moving in silent prayer. Davis stared at nothing, his expression blank. Booker sat across from her, relaxed as if he were waiting for a bus. He caught her looking and leaned close. First combat insertion? Yes, Sergeant. You scared? Elena considered lying, decided against it. Yes, Sergeant. He nodded approvingly. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it freeze you. He tapped his chest. Trust your training. Trust your team. Everything else is noise. And if the team doesn't trust me? Booker was quiet for a long moment. Then you earn it. The helicopter banked hard, throwing everyone against their restraints. Through the open door, Elena could see the ocean below, black and endless and utterly indifferent to the violence about to unfold above it. She pulled out her notebook one last time, checking calculations by the dim red light of the cabin. Wind speed, direction, pressure. She'd studied the forecast obsessively, knew the conditions by heart. But conditions changed, always. The crew chief held up 5 fingers, 5 minutes. Marines chambered rounds, checked grenades. Some made jokes, dark humor to cut the tension. Others were silent, locked into their own heads. Elena's hands found the Barrett, checking it by touch alone. Magazine seated, chamber clear, optics protected. The helicopter began to descend. Through the door, she could see the target now. A scatter of lights on a dark peninsula, smaller than it had looked in the photos, more fragile. 30 seconds! The crew chief's voice cut through the cabin. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Her mouth was dry. Every muscle in her body was coiled tight. The helicopter flared hard, rotors screaming as it arrested its descent. Ropes! 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 Fast ropes deployed from both sides, thick coils of braided nylon dropping toward the ground. Marines moved like water, flowing toward the doors. Booker went first, grabbing the rope and dropping into the night. His team followed, Rodriguez, Kim, Davis, disappearing into the darkness below. Go, go, go! Elena reached the rope, grabbed it, felt the rough fiber bite into her gloves. Then she stepped into nothing. The ground rushed up faster than thought. She controlled her descent, squeezing the rope, her training taking over. Wind tore at her face. The Barrett slammed against her back. She hit the ground hard, stumbled, caught her balance. Around her, the courtyard was chaos. Marines spreading out, taking positions. The helicopters pulling away, rotors fading. And then, crack, 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 crack. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like angry stars. Contact north. Contact south. We're in a fucking kill zone. The world exploded into noise and violence. Elena dove behind a low wall as rounds snapped through the air where she'd been standing. Stone chips sprayed her face. Someone screamed. The radio was a mess of overlapping voices. Across the courtyard, she saw Rodriguez go down, just collapsed like someone had cut his strings. Kim was dragging him toward cover, her movements jerky with panic. Davis fired controlled bursts at unseen targets. And Booker was standing in the open, calmly directing fire, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Suppressive fire on the north building! Get those 50s in the fight! A Marine nearby started setting up a heavy machine gun. Elena pressed herself against the wall, her breath coming in short gasps. The Barrett was a useless weight on her back. Too big. Too slow. Everything Creel had said was true. This was chaos, not precision. She'd brought the wrong tool. Another scream. Another Marine down. The operation was falling apart, and Elena realized with terrible clarity that this was only the beginning, that something much worse was coming. She just didn't know what yet. The bullet that killed Rodriguez hit him in the throat. Elena saw it happen from 15 feet away, saw the kid's eyes go wide with surprise, saw him grab at his neck like he could hold the blood inside, saw Kim screaming his name as she dragged him behind cover that wouldn't matter anymore. The courtyard had become a meat grinder. Muzzle flashes erupted from windows in both the north and south buildings, interlocking fields of fire that turned the central space into a kill box. The intelligence had been wrong. The timing had been wrong. Everything about this operation had been built on assumptions that were now getting people killed. Elena's back was pressed against a stone planter, her breath coming in short bursts that fogged in the cold air. The Barrett dug into her spine. Around her, the world had compressed into a series of snapshots. Booker bellowing orders, Davis returning fire in controlled bursts, a Marine she didn't know crawling toward Rodriguez's body with a medical kit. Too late. Everyone knew it was too late. Voss! She looked up. Booker was 20 feet away, using a concrete pillar for cover. Blood ran down the left side of his face from a scalp wound, but his eyes were clear and furious. Get to the south wall! We need eyes on those shooters! Elena's legs moved before her brain caught up. She sprinted in a low crouch, rounds snapping through the air around her. Something tugged at her sleeve. She didn't look, didn't stop. Just ran until she hit the wall and dropped behind it, her shoulder slamming into stone. Sergeant Kim was already there, her face spattered with Rodriguez's blood. She wasn't crying, wasn't speaking, just staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Kim? Elena grabbed her shoulder. Kim? Look at me. Nothing. Elena shook her harder. Sergeant, I need you here, right now. Kim's eyes focused slowly. He's dead. I know. We haven't even been on the ground 2 minutes, and he's already... I know. Elena's voice came out harsher than intended. But we're still alive, and we need to stay that way. You understand? Kim blinked, nodded. Some of the shock cleared from her face. The radio crackled with overlapping transmissions, taking fire from multiple. Need CAS now. We are danger close. Alpha team is pinned, requesting... Commander Chen's voice cut through the chaos, tight with controlled panic. All Reaper elements, this is Overwatch. Air support is 8 minutes out. Hold your positions and maintain suppressive fire. 8 minutes. An eternity in a firefight. Elena risked a look over the wall. The south building was 70 meters away, a 2-story structure with narrow windows and a flat roof. She counted at least 3 muzzle flashes coming from the upper floor. Professional positions. Overlapping sectors. Whoever was inside knew exactly what they were doing. We're not going to last 8 minutes, Kim said quietly. She was right. The Marines were good, but they were exposed, pinned down in a courtyard with minimal cover. Already 2 were down. Maybe more that Elena couldn't see from this angle. Booker appeared beside them, moving in a low run. His face was a mask of blood and fury. Chen says air support's coming. he said, "but we need to suppress those shooters until they get here, or we're all dead." He looked at Elena. "You got anything useful in that analyst brain, or are you just dead weight like the general said?" The question cut deeper than he probably intended. Elena's mind raced. Standard tactics said suppress and wait for support. But standard tactics assumed you had time. They didn't. She closed her eyes for 3 seconds. Visualized the compound from the satellite imagery she'd memorized. 3 buildings. The north and south acting as the base of a triangle, the west building forming the point. Hills rising behind the north building. Rocky terrain. Limited approaches. Her eyes snapped open. "The east wall," she said. "It's the only side not covered by direct fire. If we can get 2 or 3 people around there, they can flank the south building while the rest of you keep them busy." Booker considered this. That's a 100-meter sprint across open ground. 30 meters. There's a drainage ditch running along the perimeter. Satellite showed it 3 feet deep. Enough concealment if you stay low. "If you're wrong, I'm not." He stared at her for a long moment. Around them, gunfire continued in sporadic bursts. Someone was screaming for a medic. "Kim," Booker said, "you're with me. Davis, get your ass over here." Davis scrambled over, his rifle barrel still smoking. He was breathing hard, but his hands were steady. Booker pointed toward the east wall. "We're going to flank those bastards. Voss says there's a ditch we can use for concealment." Davis looked at Elena with something between skepticism and desperation. "You sure about this, Chief?" "Yes." Not entirely true. She was 90% sure. But 90% was better than 0. "All right." Booker checked his magazine. "On my mark. Everyone else lays down suppressing fire. We sprint for that ditch and we don't stop until we're in it. Clear?" Kim and Davis nodded. Booker keyed his radio. "All Reaper elements. This is Reaper 1. On my mark, I need maximum suppression on the south building. Pour it on thick. Mark in 5, 4. Elena watched them prepare to move. Watched Booker's jaw tighten. Watched Kim take 3 quick breaths. Watched Davis's finger rest alongside his trigger guard. 3, 2, 1. The courtyard erupted. Every Marine still standing opened fire on the south building. The M240 machine gun roared to life, its heavy rounds tearing chunks out of the stone walls. Tracers arced through the darkness like angry fireflies. Booker, Kim, and Davis broke from cover. They moved fast. Serpentine patterns, using every scrap of terrain. Elena tracked them with her eyes, silently counting seconds. 10 meters, 20, 30. There, the ditch, exactly where she'd said it would be. They dove into it and disappeared. The suppressing fire continued for another 10 seconds, then tapered off. Marines conserving ammunition. The enemy fire from the south building had slackened too, probably pulling back from the windows, reassessing. Elena released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Beside her, a young Marine she didn't know was reloading with shaking hands. He looked maybe 20, baby-faced and terrified. "First time?" Elena asked quietly. He jumped at her voice. "That obvious?" "Little bit. Rodriguez was my roommate." His voice cracked. "We went through boot together." Elena didn't know what to say to that. Didn't have any platitudes that wouldn't sound hollow. So she just reached over and squeezed his shoulder once. The radio crackled. "Reaper 1 to Overwatch, we're in position. Stand by." Chen's response was immediate. "Copy, Reaper 1, air support now 6 minutes out." Too long, still too long. 30 seconds passed, 45. Then, a grenade explosion from the south building, followed by the distinctive rattle of M4s firing full auto. The enemy fire from that building stopped. "Reaper 1 to all elements. South building secure. 2 enemy KIA, 1 wounded and captured." A ragged cheer went up from the courtyard, but Elena felt no relief. Because the north building was still active, and she'd seen at least 5 shooters operating from there. The south had been the smaller threat, the appetizer. As if reading her mind, the north building opened up again. This time, the fire was different, heavier, more concentrated. Elena heard the distinctive crack of a large caliber rifle, probably a .308 or bigger. Precision fire. A Marine near the center of the courtyard went down, helmet spinning away. "Sniper!" Someone screamed. The word sent a ripple of panic through the formation. Automatic weapons fire you could handle. You could suppress it, avoid it, adapt to it. But a skilled sniper could kill you from positions you couldn't see, couldn't reach, couldn't fight back against. The Marines pulled tighter into cover. Return fire decreased as people hunched behind whatever protection they could find. Elena's mind calculated angles automatically. The sniper had to be on the second floor of the north building or possibly the roof. Elevated position. Good sight lines to the courtyard. Range, approximately 100 meters, manageable distance for any competent marksman. Her hand found the Barrett almost unconsciously. No. She pushed the thought away. This wasn't a range. This was chaos. Moving targets, poor lighting, adrenaline making her hands unsteady. Everything Creel had said about the difference between training and combat was true. Another crack. Another Marine dove for cover, cursing. Chen's voice on the radio strained now. Reaper elements, air support is 4 minutes out. Hold position. 4 minutes was a lifetime when someone was hunting you. Booker and his team were moving back toward the main group, using the ditch for concealment. Good. They'd done their job. Now, they just had to survive long enough for the helicopters to arrive. The sniper fired again. This time, Elena saw the muzzle flash. Second floor, northwest window. There for a fraction of a second, then gone. Her fingers tightened on the Barrett's grip. She could make that shot. Probably. Maybe. The doubt was poison in her veins. Beside her, the young Marine was breathing too fast, heading toward hyperventilation. She grabbed his arm. Hey, look at me. Breathe slower. In through your nose, out through your mouth. He tried, failed, tried again. What's your name? Elena asked. T. Turner. Private Turner. Okay, Turner. You're doing fine. Just keep your head down and... Another shot. Closer this time. Stone chips sprayed across them. Turner flinched so hard he nearly dropped his rifle. Elena's tactical brain was screaming at her. The sniper was systematically pinning down the entire unit. Every shot forced someone to take cover, reduced their ability to maneuver. In 3 minutes, when the helicopters arrived for extraction, they'd be sitting ducks on the ropes. Easy targets. The sniper knew it too. This was a strategy. Calculated. Professional. She looked at the Barrett in her hands. Looked at the north building. Did the math. The wind was blowing west to east at approximately 12 knots. Temperature had dropped maybe 5 degrees since they'd landed. Humidity was high from the ocean. Range to target, call it 110 meters. Relatively short for the Barrett, but the .50 BMG round would still be supersonic at that distance. Bullet drop would be minimal. Wind deflection may be half an MOA. All of that assumed she could find the target. See it. Identify it. Engage it before it moved. Also assumed her hands would stop shaking. They hadn't yet. Chief Voss? She turned. Commander Chen had made her way across the courtyard, moving between positions. Her uniform was torn at the shoulder and her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. Commander? Chen dropped down beside her. We have a problem. Just one? A ghost of a smile. Fair point, but this one's immediate. That sniper is going to tear us apart during extraction. I need options. Elena hesitated. Air support could suppress. Air support is 3 minutes out and they'll need at least 90 seconds to acquire and engage. That's not enough time. Chen's jaw tightened. I need that shooter neutralized before the birds arrive or we're going to lose people on the ropes. You want me to... You're the best long-range shooter we have on the ground. Chen's voice dropped lower. I know Creel gave you shit. I know Booker doesn't trust you. I know everyone thinks you're just an analyst playing soldier, but right now, none of that matters. Can you make the shot or not? The question hung between them. Elena thought about Rodriguez, thought about the Marine who'd been hit by the sniper, thought about all the other people who'd die if she said no, thought about the 30 pounds of dead weight on her back that everyone had mocked. I need a spotter, she said quietly, and I need everyone to stop shooting for 30 seconds so I can listen. Chen frowned. Listen? To the wind. For a moment, Chen just stared at her. Then she nodded. Done. She keyed her radio. All Reaper elements cease fire. I say again, cease fire. Hold positions and maintain silence. The courtyard went quiet. It was eerie. the sudden absence of gunfire. Elena could hear the ocean now, waves breaking against rocks somewhere in the darkness. Could hear the wind moving through the compound, eddying around buildings and walls. She closed her eyes and just listened. Wind was never uniform. It moved in layers and currents, changed speed and direction based on terrain and temperature. Most shooters just checked wind at their position and hoped for the best. But Elena had learned to read it like music, to hear the variations, the patterns, the invisible architecture of moving air. The wind here was tricky. It accelerated as it funneled between the buildings, then spread out over the courtyard, probably gusting to 15 knots in places, dropping to 8 in others. Chaotic, but not random. She could work with it. Elena opened her eyes and started setting up the Barrett, extended the bipod, checked the chamber. The scope was a loopholed Mark IV, high quality, but not the latest generation. She'd logged hundreds of hours behind this optic, knew its quirks. "Turner," she said, "you're my spotter." The kid looked terrified. I don't know how to... You don't need to. Just watch where I'm aiming and tell me what you see. Can you do that? He swallowed hard, nodded. Elena got into position behind the rifle, her body automatically forming the proper shooting stance. Left hand supporting the forestock, right hand on the grip, cheek weld firm, but not forced. The stone planter she was using for a rest wasn't ideal, but it would work. She looked through the scope. The north building jumped into focus. She could see the window where the muzzle flash had originated. Second floor, third window from the left. Dark now. No movement. "Commander," Elena said without taking her eye from the scope. "I need someone to draw fire. Get the sniper to show himself." Chen didn't hesitate. "Reaper 1, did you copy that?" Booker's voice came back skeptical. "You want us to play target?" "Affirmative. One shot, high and obvious. We need to see where it comes from." "But..." A pause. Then, "Copy that. Stand by." 10 seconds passed. 15. Then a single rifle shot cracked out from Booker's position, aimed deliberately high and wide, no real threat. A challenge. The enemy sniper took the bait. Muzzle flash, second floor, but not the window Elena had been watching. One window to the right. He'd moved. Smart. The flash lasted maybe a tenth of a second, but it was enough. Elena's brain captured it, processed it, filed it away. "You see it?" she asked Turner. "Yeah, second floor, fourth window from left." "Good. Now watch that window. If you see anything, movement, shadow, anything, tell me immediately." Turner pressed his face against the wall, staring at the building. Elena adjusted her aim, settling the crosshairs on the window where the flash had appeared. Her breathing slowed automatically. In through the nose, out through the mouth, heart rate decreasing. This was the part she was good at. The stillness. The calculation. The scope's reticle was a standard mil dot. She made minute adjustments, accounting for the wind she'd mapped in her head. The target was partially concealed behind the window frame. She'd have maybe a 2-foot window to shoot through, and the sniper would only be visible for a fraction of a second when he took his next shot. It was a timing problem as much as a shooting problem. "Chief," Chen whispered, "air support is 90 seconds out," which meant Elena had maybe 60 seconds to make this work before the helicopters arrived, and everything went even more chaotic. 60 seconds. She controlled her breathing, felt her heartbeat in her fingertips. The Barrett was rock steady on its bipod, the crosshairs barely wavering. "Reaper 1, Chen said into the radio. "One more shot, same as before." "Seriously?" "Affirm." Another pause. Then, "Your funeral." Booker fired again, another obvious, non-threatening shot. Elena's world narrowed to the window. Her finger rested on the trigger. She wasn't pulling yet, just waiting. Reading the wind, feeling the rhythm of her own body. The muzzle flash came exactly where she expected, and this time, for just an instant, she saw him. Silhouette in the window, head and shoulders, the distinctive shape of a rifle scope. Her finger moved. The Barrett roared. The recoil slammed into her shoulder like a truck, but she rode it out, already working the bolt, chambering another round. Through the scope, she saw the window was empty. "Did you hit him?" Turner asked, his voice high with tension. "I don't know." 5 seconds passed. 10. No return fire from that window, But that didn't mean anything. Could mean she'd hit him. Could mean he'd moved again. Could mean he was waiting for her to expose herself. Movement, Turner hissed. Different window, ground floor, far right. Elena swung the rifle hard, tracking to the new position. Her breath caught. A figure in the window, raising a rifle. Not the sniper. Someone else. This one was aiming toward the main group of Marines. Elena didn't think, just reacted. Crosshairs on center mass. Minimal wind adjustment needed at this angle. Slight correction for the downward angle. She fired. The figure jerked backward and disappeared. Holy shit, Turner breathed. Elena was already scanning for new threats, her mind detached and clinical. The math was clean. The execution cleaner. This was what she'd trained for. This was what they'd said she'd never be able to do. The radio erupted with Chen's voice. All elements, air support inbound, prepare for extraction. I want everyone at the LZ in 30 seconds. The sound of helicopters grew louder. 2 AH-1 Cobras screamed overhead, their rotors beating the air into submission. Their 20mm cannons opened up on the north building, turning it into a storm of fire and fragmenting stone. The enemy fire stopped completely. Marines began moving toward the extraction point, the same courtyard where they'd landed. The Cobras circled like predators, daring anyone to shoot back. Chen grabbed Elena's shoulder. Move. Now. Elena broke down the Barrett with practiced speed, collapsing the bipod and securing it across her back. She helped Turner to his feet. The kid was shaking but mobile. They ran toward the center of the courtyard where the CH-53 was already descending, its massive rotors creating a hurricane of dust and debris. Booker materialized out of the chaos, half carrying a wounded Marine. His eyes found Elena. "That was you?" He shouted over the rotor noise. "Those shots?" She nodded. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite respect, not quite trust, but acknowledgement. "Get on the bird," he said. The helicopter touched down and Marines piled in, moving with desperate efficiency. Elena climbed aboard, squeezing into a seat. Turner collapsed beside her. Kim was already there, her face still blank with shock. Davis was helping load the wounded. Rodriguez's body was carried on last, wrapped in a poncho liner. They strapped it down carefully, reverently. The helicopter lifted off, pulling away from the compound. Through the open door, Elena could see the Cobras continuing their work, systematically destroying the north building. Inside the cabin, nobody spoke. The adrenaline was wearing off now, replaced by exhaustion and the weight of what had just happened. Elena's hands started shaking, delayed reaction. She gripped her knees to make it stop. Chen dropped into the seat across from her. Blood ran from a cut above her eye, but she ignored it. "Two confirmed," she said quietly. "The sniper and the one on the ground floor. Clean shots, both of them." Elena didn't respond, didn't trust her voice. "You saved lives today, Chief. Rodriguez is dead, and 8 others aren't, because of you." Chen leaned forward. "I'm putting you in for a commendation, and I'm going to make damn sure General Creel knows exactly who pulled us out of that mess." "Don't," Chen frowned. "What?" "Don't tell Creel. Don't put me in for anything." Elena's voice was barely audible over the rotors. "I just want to do my job." "This was your job." Elena looked out the open door at the ocean passing below. Somewhere down there, Rodriguez's family didn't know yet that he was gone. Didn't know that their son, their brother, their friend, had died in a courtyard 3,000 miles from home. "No," she said softly. "My job was supposed to be analysis, keeping people safe with information. But we went in with bad intelligence and bad timing, and Rodriguez paid for it. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it?" Elena met Chen's eyes. "I knew something was wrong, told you in the TOC, but I didn't push hard enough, didn't trust my own assessment, and now he's dead." Chen was quiet for a long moment. "Welcome to command, Chief, where every decision costs something and you never know which one will cost everything." The helicopter banked toward the USS Titan, now visible as a dark shape on the darker ocean. They landed 20 minutes later. The deck crew was ready with stretchers and medical personnel. The wounded were whisked away immediately. Rodriguez's body was carried with more ceremony. Elena walked across the flight deck in a daze. The Barrett felt heavier now than it had before. Or maybe she was just tired. "Voss," she turned. General Creel stood near the superstructure, his arms crossed. His face was unreadable in the deck lights. Elena came to attention automatically. "Sir?" He walked toward her slowly, his boots ringing on the non-skid. When he stopped, he was close enough that she could see her reflection in his eyes. "Commander Chen briefed me," he said. "Told me you took down 2 enemy combatants. Neutralized a sniper that was pinning down the entire unit." "Yes, sir." "With that rifle I called dead weight." "Yes, sir." Creel was silent for a long moment. Around them, the deck crew worked with efficient purpose. Nobody was watching, but Elena felt exposed anyway. "I was wrong," Creel said finally. The words hit harder than Elena expected. "You proved something today, Chief. Not to me. I don't matter. You proved it to yourself, and to everyone else on that operation." He paused. "But one good day doesn't erase the fact that we lost a Marine, that this entire operation was a clusterfuck from start to finish." "I know, sir." "Do you?" His voice hardened. "Because from where I'm standing, you're still the same analyst who walked onto my deck 3 days ago. Still carrying skills you proved you can use, but surrounded by people who don't trust you yet. Respect earned in combat fades fast. Trust takes longer." He was right, and they both knew it. "Get some rest, Chief. Tomorrow we debrief. And then we figure out what the hell went wrong with our intelligence." He started to walk away, then stopped. "And Voss? Next time you know something's wrong, you speak up louder. Rank isn't worth a damn if it gets people killed." He disappeared into the superstructure. Elena stood alone on the deck, the wind pulling at her uniform. Her legs felt like water. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. She walked down to berthing, stripped off her gear, and sat on her rack. The notebook was still in her pocket. She pulled it out and opened it to a blank page, started to write Rodriguez's name. Couldn't. Her hand just wouldn't move. Jamie appeared from somewhere, took one look at Elena's face, and sat down beside her without speaking. Just sat there. Present. Solid. After a while, Elena managed to write it. Rodriguez, KIA, age 20, killed in action. One name, but it felt like 1,000. She closed the notebook and lay back on her rack, staring at the underside of the bunk above her. The ship moved beneath her, rolling with the ocean's rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the faint sound of machinery, of life continuing. Tomorrow there would be debriefs, questions, analysis of what went wrong. Tonight there was just the weight of being right when it mattered, and the weight of being too quiet when it mattered more. Elena closed her eyes, but she didn't sleep. She just listened to the ocean and thought about calculations she'd never get to take back. Sleep never came. Elena lay in her rack staring at nothing while the ship groaned around her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Rodriguez grabbing at his throat, saw the surprise in his face, saw Kim's hands covered in blood that wouldn't stop coming. At 0430 hours, she gave up and climbed out of her bunk. The passageways were nearly empty, just the night watch and a few insomniacs like herself. She made her way to the galley and poured coffee that tasted like burned rubber, sat alone at a table, bolted to the deck, and watched the black liquid cool. Footsteps approached from behind. "Thought I'd find you here." Commander Chen dropped into the seat across from her. She looked worse than Elena felt, eyes bloodshot, uniform wrinkled, a fresh bandage above her left eye where the cut had been stitched. "Couldn't sleep," Elena said. "Nobody could." Chen wrapped her hands around her own coffee mug. "I just came from medical. The wounded are stable. 3 will be medevaced to Germany once we're in range." "And Rodriguez?" "Being prepared for transport home." Chen's voice went flat. "His parents live in El Paso. Father's a retired Army sergeant. Mother's a teacher." Elena's stomach twisted. "They know yet?" "Notification team is en route to their house right now." Chen checked her watch. "Should be there in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes until Rodriguez's mother opened her door and saw 2 officers in dress uniforms standing on her porch. 20 minutes until her entire world collapsed. Elena pushed the coffee away, couldn't drink it. "The debrief is at 0800, Chen said. "Creel wants everyone who was on the ground. He's bringing in people from intelligence, operations, the works. This is going to be thorough, and it's going to be ugly." "Good." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Good?" "People died because we had bad intel and worse timing. Someone needs to answer for that." Careful, Chief. You're part of the intelligence apparatus. You helped prepare the brief. I also told you something felt wrong and nobody listened, including you. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. You said yourself. You didn't push hard enough. The words landed like a physical blow because they were true. They sat in silence for a while. Around them, the ship was waking up. More personnel appearing in the galley, the smell of breakfast being prepared, the normal rhythm of military life continuing despite everything. I talked to the Marines, Chen said finally. Booker, Kim, Davis. Ask them about your performance. Elena's jaw tightened. And? Booker said you saved his ass. Exact words. Said the tactical suggestion about the drainage ditch was solid and your shooting was, quote, unfucking believable for someone who'd never been in combat before. He also probably said I froze up when we first took contact. He did. But he also said that's normal. That everyone freezes the first time. What matters is what you do after. Chen leaned forward. Kim said you brought her back when she was losing it. Davis said your shots were the only reason they could extract without losing half the team. These aren't small things, Elena. Elena stared at her coffee. Rodriguez is still dead. Yes, and that's going to sit on all of us for a long time. Chen stood up. But don't let guilt turn into paralysis. We have a job to do, and right now, part of that job is figuring out what the hell went wrong yesterday, so it doesn't happen again. She walked away, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts and cold coffee. The debrief started exactly at 800 in the ship's main briefing room, a windowless space filled with chairs and a large screen at the front. 20 people crammed inside. Officers, senior enlisted, intelligence specialists. The air was thick with exhaustion and anger. General Creel stood at the front, his uniform immaculate despite everything. Behind him on the screen was a satellite image of the compound. Let's get one thing clear, he started without preamble. Yesterday was a failure. We lost 1 Marine, wounded 3 others, and failed to capture or eliminate our primary target. The only reason we're not completely fucked is because Chief Voss managed to neutralize 2 enemy combatants who would have killed more of our people during extraction. All eyes turned to Elena. She kept her face neutral. Creel continued. Now we're going to break down exactly what went wrong, starting with intelligence. Commander Chen, you're up. Chen stood and moved to the front. She pulled up a series of slides. The original intel brief, the satellite imagery, communications intercepts. The target was identified as Dmitry Volkov, a Russian arms dealer with ties to several hostile nations. Intelligence suggested he'd be at the compound for a meeting with potential buyers. Our window was narrow, 12 hours max. She clicked to the next slide. We had moderate confidence in the intelligence. Multiple sources corroborated the location, but the timeline was based on a single SIGINT intercept. Moderate confidence, Creel repeated, his tone dangerous. And yet we launched a full combat operation. The decision to launch came from higher up, sir. We presented the intelligence as it was, with caveats about confidence levels and time sensitivity. Who made the final call? Chen hesitated. SOCOM command, sir. They deemed the opportunity worth the risk. Creel's face darkened. Worth the risk. Tell that to Rodriguez's parents. The room went silent. Captain Morrison spoke up from the back. Sir, with respect, we followed protocol. The intelligence met the threshold for action. The problem wasn't the decision to launch. It was the execution. Explain. Morrison stood. We were compromised before we hit the ground. The enemy was ready for us. That level of preparation doesn't happen in 15 minutes. They knew we were coming. How? Unknown, sir. Could be a leak. Could be surveillance we didn't detect. Could be pure bad luck. Elena's mind was racing. She'd been thinking about this all night. The pieces didn't fit. It wasn't bad luck, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Creel's eyes narrowed. You have something to add, Chief? Elena stood up slowly. Her legs felt unsteady, but her voice stayed firm. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. She moved to the front of the room, her heart hammering. The enemy wasn't just ready for us. They were specifically prepared for a helicopter assault on that courtyard. The positioning of their shooters, the overlapping fields of fire, that wasn't improvised. It was designed to turn that LZ into a kill zone. Morrison frowned. So they had good defensive positions. That doesn't mean the south and north buildings created perfect enfilade fire, Elena interrupted. Any military planner looking at that compound would identify the courtyard as the most likely insertion point for a helicopter assault. It's the largest open space, central location, good accessibility. So they defended it well. That's basic tactics. Exactly, basic tactics. Elena pulled up a new image on the screen, a wider aerial view of the compound. But look at the east side. There's another clearing here, slightly smaller but still viable for insertion. Natural cover from the hills. Better concealment from the ocean approach. If I were planning a defense and I couldn't cover both areas equally, I'd put my primary firepower watching the obvious target, the courtyard. The east clearing would get secondary coverage at best. Booker spoke up from the side of the room. We went in through the east drainage ditch during the operation. Didn't encounter any resistance on that side. Because they weren't covering it, Elena said. They put everything into defending the courtyard because they knew that's where we'd insert. Creel leaned forward. You're saying they knew our exact plan? I'm saying they knew enough to prepare for it, which means either they had access to our planning documents or they were told, Chen finished. The room erupted. That's a serious accusation, Chief. Are you suggesting we have a leak? This is speculation at best. Quiet. Creel's voice cut through the noise like a blade. The room went silent. He looked at Elena. Continue. Elena took a breath. There's something else. The communications array we identified, the one that appeared 2 days before the operation. I reviewed the imagery again last night. It's not just high-end civilian equipment. Those antennas are military grade, specifically designed for encrypted burst transmissions. She pulled up a close-up image of the antennas. This setup is expensive and sophisticated. You don't install something like this unless you're expecting to coordinate complex operations. And you don't install it 48 hours before a meeting unless you know something is about to happen. Lieutenant Commander Hayes crossed his arms. Or Volkov was just being paranoid. Maybe. But combined with the defensive preparations and the timing of when we were compromised, Elena met Creel's eyes. Sir, I think Volkov knew we were coming, and I think someone told him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Morrison stood up, his face red. This is ridiculous. Chief Voss is an analyst with one combat operation under her belt, and she's accusing us of having a traitor in our ranks based on what? Antenna types? I'm not accusing anyone, Elena said evenly. I'm following the intelligence where it leads. You're making connections that don't exist. You're traumatized from combat and you're seeing conspiracies. Sit down, Captain. Creel's voice was ice. Morrison sat. Creel turned back to Elena. What's your assessment, Chief? Full picture. Elena organized her thoughts. This was her element. Breaking down information, finding patterns. Someone with access to our operational planning leaked details to Volkov or his people. Not the full plan, but enough. Enough to know we were coming, roughly when, and likely how. Volkov evacuated before we arrived, but left a defending force that was specifically prepared for our insertion method. Evidence? Circumstantial but consistent. The new communications equipment, the defensive positions, the timing of when we were compromised. And one more thing. She pulled up another slide. Our primary target wasn't at the compound. We captured one hostile alive. Commander Chen, has he been interrogated yet? Chen shook her head. He's still being processed. I recommend we prioritize that interrogation. He might know why Volkov left. Creel studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Chen, make it happen. I want preliminary results in 2 hours. He looked around the room. If Chief Voss is right and we have a security breach, this goes way beyond one failed operation. We're talking about compromised assets, blown operations, potentially more dead Marines. He turned back to Elena. You just bought yourself a job, Chief. You're lead analyst on this investigation. Full access to all intelligence materials related to this operation and anything connected to it. Report directly to Commander Chen. I want answers. Elena's stomach dropped. Sir, I'm not qualified to... You're the most qualified person we have because you're the only one who saw it. Everyone else was too busy following orders to question them. His voice softened slightly. You were right about the operation feeling wrong. You were right about the defensive preparations? So keep being right. Find out who got Rodriguez killed. The debrief ended shortly after. People filed out in small groups, talking in low voices. Elena stood at the front of the room, staring at the screen, trying to process what had just happened. Booker approached, his massive frame blocking her view. That took balls. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. He extended his hand. For what it's worth, I think you're onto something. That compound was ready for us in a way that felt wrong, even in the moment. Elena shook his hand. His grip could have crushed stone, but he kept it gentle. I'm sorry I gave you shit, he said quietly. On the deck, before the operation, I was wrong. You were protecting your people. Yeah, well, turns out you're one of them now. He released her hand. You need anything for this investigation? You let me know. I'll shake down whoever you need shaken. He walked out. Elena was alone in the briefing room. She sat down in one of the chairs and pulled out her notebook. Started making lists. Access to operational planning, limited to senior staff and intelligence personnel. Maybe 20 people total on this ship, plus whoever they'd sent the plans to at SOCOM. Communications equipment required significant resources to install. Volkov had known to bring it. Why? Timeline. 48 hours between when the equipment appeared and when we launched. Just enough time to set up defenses. Her pencil moved faster, connections forming, patterns emerging. The door opened. Commander Chen walked in. You look like you're already working, she said. Can't stop thinking about it. Chen sat down beside her. Elena, this investigation is going to make you enemies. People don't like being suspected, especially people with rank and power. I know. And if you're wrong, if there's no leak, and this was just bad luck and good defensive planning, you'll have burned bridges for nothing. I know that too. Chen was quiet for a moment. But if you're right, then we prevent the next Rodriguez. All right. Chen stood. The prisoner is in the brig. They're setting up for interrogation now. I want you there. They walked through the ship's corridors, down 3 decks, past Marine sentries who checked their IDs twice. The brig was a small, secure area, 3 cells and an interrogation room. The prisoner sat handcuffed to a table. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair, lean build. His face was bruised and one eye was swollen shut. He'd been treated by medical, but he wasn't comfortable. An interrogator was already in the room, a Navy intelligence specialist named Petty Officer First Class Marcus Webb. Tall, black, with a calm demeanor that hid a sharp mind. Commander, Chief, Webb said. Subject has been non-responsive so far. Won't even confirm his name. Elena studied the prisoner through the one-way glass. He sat perfectly still, his one good eye staring at the table. Has he asked for anything? Elena asked. Water, medical attention, both provided. What about a lawyer? Webb shook his head. He's not a U.S. citizen and he was captured in combat. He doesn't get a lawyer. But he doesn't know that. Chen frowned. What are you thinking? Elena watched the prisoner's body language, the way he held himself despite the pain, the discipline in his stillness. He's military, or former military. You can see it in how he sits. So military personnel are trained to resist interrogation. Name, rank, serial number, that's it. He's not going to talk using standard approaches. She turned to Chen. Let me try something. You're not an interrogator. I know, but I might be able to read him differently. Chen considered this, then nodded. 10 minutes. If you don't get anything, Webb takes over. Elena entered the interrogation room. The prisoner's eye tracked her movement, but his expression didn't change. She sat down across from him and pulled out her notebook. Started writing. Numbers, calculations, random observations. She didn't look at him, just wrote. After 2 minutes of silence, the prisoner spoke. You are the one who shot Mikhail. His English was accented but clear. Elena looked up. The sniper? Yes. He was good. You were better. She set down her pencil. What's your name? You know I cannot tell you. Can't or won't? Same thing. Elena studied him. You're right about Mikhail. He was good, very good. I got lucky. The prisoner's mouth twitched, almost a smile. You are being humble. or you do not understand what you did. 300-meter shot in crosswind through a 6-inch window. Mikhail had killed 17 men with less difficulty. 7 tit. He kept count. The prisoner shifted slightly, his cuffs rattling. You should keep count too. It matters. Why does it matter? Because otherwise you forget they were people. They become numbers, statistics. His good eye found hers. You do not want them to become numbers. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. You sound like you're speaking from experience. I am speaking from 12 years of experience. He leaned back. I have killed 43 men. I remember each one, what they wore, how they fell. Some begged, some fought, some simply died quietly. He paused. Mikhail was the first friend I have lost. That is why I remember you. The room was silent except for the hum of ventilation. Elena opened her notebook to a fresh page. The man who hired you, Volkov. He left before we arrived. Yes. How did he know we were coming? The prisoner smiled with cracked lips. You already know the answer to that question. You are intelligent. I can see it. Someone told him. Yes. Who? If I tell you, they will kill me. They'll kill you anyway. You're a prisoner of war who engaged U.S. forces. Best case, you spend the next 20 years in a cell. Then I have nothing to gain by talking. Elena leaned forward. You said you remember them, the people you've killed, that you don't want them to become numbers. Yes. Yesterday, a 20-year-old Marine died because someone warned Volkov. He was shot in the throat, bled out in about 90 seconds. His name was Rodriguez. He had parents in Texas, a younger sister, a girlfriend who doesn't know he's dead yet. Her voice stayed level. If you stay silent, the person who warned Volkov will do it again. More Marines will die. More people will become numbers. The prisoner's face shifted slightly, some internal calculation happening behind his eyes. You appeal to my conscience, he said quietly. Clever. I'm appealing to your memory, to the part of you that still counts. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I do not know the name, but I know they exist. Volkov received a message 2 days before your attack, encrypted. It contained details, not everything, but enough. He laughed when he read it, said Americans cannot keep secrets even from themselves. What else did the message say? I did not see it, only heard Volkov talking about it. He said the Americans would come by helicopter, that they would be overconfident, that we should prepare to make them pay for their arrogance. Elena's pencil was moving across the page. Did he say anything about who sent it? Only that they were valuable, that they had provided information before and it was always good. The prisoner's good eye met hers. Volkov is not a trusting man. He does not work with sources unless they have proven themselves multiple times. Whoever your traitor is, they have been selling your secrets for a while. The door opened. Chen stepped in. That's enough, Chief. Webb needs to continue the interrogation. Elena stood. The prisoner watched her. Rodriguez, he said. I will remember his name. She left the room. Outside, Chen was waiting with Webb. You got more in 10 minutes than we got in 2 hours. How? I treated him like a person instead of a target. Webb looked annoyed. With respect, Chief, he could have been lying, playing you. He wasn't. How do you know? Because he gave us something without asking for anything in return. If he was playing us, he'd have negotiated first. Chen pulled out her phone. I need to brief Creel. This confirms your theory. We have a leak, and it's someone with access to operational details. She walked away, already dialing. Elena stood in the corridor, her mind churning. Someone on this ship or in the chain of command had betrayed them, had sold information that got Rodriguez killed. And that person was still out there, still had access, still dangerous. She pulled out her notebook and started a new list. Everyone who'd known about the operation. Everyone who'd had access to the planning documents. Everyone who'd been in a position to communicate with external sources. 23 names. She'd checked them all. The next 6 hours were a blur. Elena buried herself in intelligence reports, communication logs, personnel files. Chen gave her a small office and full access to the ship's classified systems. She read until her eyes burned. Patterns started emerging. 3 people had accessed the operational plans more times than their jobs required. 2 had sent personal emails through unauthorized channels in the past month. 1 had financial records that showed deposits inconsistent with their pay grade, but none of it was definitive. All of it could be explained away. At 1800 hours, someone knocked on her door. Jamie poked her head in. "You've been in here for 9 hours. When's the last time you ate?" Elena looked at her watch, surprised. "This morning." "Come on, food, now, before you pass out." They went to the galley. Elena forced herself to eat, even though everything tasted like cardboard. Jamie talked about nothing important: gossip, complaints about duty rotations, plans for when they got back to port. Normal conversation from a normal person living a normal life. It helped. After dinner, Elena went back to her office, found a message waiting on her computer from Chen. SIGINT intercepted an encrypted burst transmission from the ship 2 hours ago. Unknown destination. Working on decrypt. Come to TOC immediately. Elena's blood went cold. The leak had just made contact again. She ran. The TOC was full when she arrived. Chen stood at the central console with 3 cryptologists. They were arguing in low voices. "What do we have?" Elena asked. Chen pulled up a file. 15-second encrypted transmission, sent from somewhere on this ship. Very sophisticated encryption. Whoever sent this knew what they were doing. "Can we decrypt it?" "Working on it, but it might take hours, maybe days." "Can we trace the origin point?" One of the cryptologists, a young woman with tired eyes, spoke up. "We narrowed it to the forward section of the ship, somewhere between frames 40 and 60. But that's still a lot of territory." Elena pulled up a ship schematic. The forward section included officer berthing, the wardroom, several administrative offices, and part of the intelligence spaces. "How many people have access to that area?" she asked. "Maybe 100, Chen said. "And before you ask, yes, that includes both of us." Elena's mind was racing. The transmission was sent 2 hours ago. That's 1600 hours. What was happening on the ship at that time? Chen checked the ship's log. Standard operations, watch rotations. A briefing in the wardroom about tomorrow's schedule. Nothing unusual. Who was at the briefing? Senior staff, maybe 20 people. "I need that list." Chen pulled it up. Elena scanned the names. Most were people she'd already identified as having access to the operational plans. But 3 new names appeared, officers who hadn't been on her original list because they weren't part of the intelligence chain, but they'd all been in the wardroom at exactly the time the transmission was sent. "The wardroom," Elena said slowly. "Is there communication equipment there?" "Standard phones and data ports. Why?" "Because if I wanted to send an encrypted transmission without being detected, I'd do it from somewhere with legitimate reasons to have communication equipment. Somewhere people wouldn't question me using it." Chen's eyes widened. "The wardroom has a secure data terminal for senior staff." They ran. The wardroom was empty when they arrived, just chairs around a long table and the smell of old coffee. Chen went straight to the data terminal in the corner. "This is logged access," she said. "Everyone who uses it has to enter credentials." She pulled up the access log for the past 3 hours. 6 people had used the terminal. Elena recognized 5 of the names immediately. All senior officers conducting normal business. The 6th name made her stop breathing. Captain Morrison. Chen stared at the screen. "No, Morrison's been with the Navy for 20 years. He's decorated, respected." "Pull his financial records." "Elena, we can't just— Commander, pull his records. Now." Chen's fingers moved across the keyboard. Morrison's financial data appeared on screen. Regular deposits consistent with his pay grade. Nothing unusual for the past year. Then Elena saw it. "Go back 3 years." Chen scrolled. And there it was. A series of irregular deposits. Not huge. 5,000 here, 8,000 there, always to different accounts. Always just under the reporting threshold, totaling almost $150,000 over 2 years. Then the deposit stopped. 18 months ago. "He got smarter," Elena said. "Started using cash or offshore accounts. Harder to trace." Chen's face had gone pale. "This is circumstantial." It's enough for questions. Elena pulled out her phone. We need to find Morrison. Now. Chen grabbed her arm. Wait, if we're wrong, if he's innocent, we've just destroyed an officer's career based on login records and old bank deposits. And if we're right and we wait, he might run, or destroy evidence, or send more information that gets more people killed. They stared at each other. Chen made her decision. She keyed her radio. Security, this is Commander Chen. I need Captain Morrison's location. Do not approach, just locate and report. The response came 30 seconds later. Commander, Captain Morrison signed out of the ship 20 minutes ago. Transport to shore leave. Elena's stomach dropped. He's running. Chen was already moving, barking orders into her radio. Recall that transport. I want Morrison back on this ship immediately. Security alert. Captain Morrison is to be detained on site. This is not a drill. They ran to the quarterdeck. The officer of the deck was on the radio, trying to raise the shore transport. Sir, the boat's not responding, he said. Chen grabbed the handset. This is Commander Chen. If that boat doesn't turn around in the next 30 seconds, I'm authorizing the use of force to stop it. A voice crackled back. Commander, we're experiencing communication difficulties. We'll advise when... The transmission cut off. Elena looked out at the ocean. In the distance, she could see the lights of the transport boat. It was moving away from the ship, fast, too fast for a routine shore run. He's on that boat, she said. Chen's jaw was tight. We can't fire on our own people. Then we lose him. For 5 seconds, Chen stood frozen. Then she grabbed the radio again. Flight Ops, this is Commander Chen. I need a helicopter in the air immediately. Armed pursuit of shore transport Delta 7. Authorization code. She rattled off a string of numbers. 2 minutes later, a Seahawk lifted off from the deck, its searchlight cutting through the darkness. Elena and Chen watched from the rail as the helicopter closed on the transport boat. The searchlight found it. For a moment, everything was frozen. The boat in the circle of light, the helicopter hovering above it. Then the boat stopped. The radio crackled. Overwatch, this is Air 2. Boat has stopped. 1 personnel visible on deck. Appears to be a pause. Confirm visual on Captain Morrison. He's raising his hands. Chen let out a breath she'd been holding. 20 minutes later, Morrison was back on the ship in handcuffs. They put him in the brig, in a different cell from the other prisoner. Elena watched through the one-way glass as he sat down at the interrogation table. He looked smaller somehow, defeated. Creel arrived with master-at-arms personnel and 2 Marine guards. His face was stone. Someone better explain to me why I just arrested one of my senior officers, he said. Chen laid out the evidence. The transmission, the access logs, the financial records, the attempted escape. Creel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Elena. You sure about this, Chief? No, sir. But I'm sure enough. He nodded once. Then let's find out. They entered the interrogation room together, Creel, Chen, and Elena. Morrison looked up at them with red-rimmed eyes. General, this is a mistake, he started. I can explain. Shut up, Creel said quietly. The words carried more weight than shouting. You ran. Innocent men don't run. Morrison's mouth closed. Creel sat down across from him. How long have you been selling us out? I haven't. How long? The shout echoed in the small room. Morrison flinched. 3 years, he said finally. His voice was barely audible. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. 3 years of betrayal. 3 years of leaked operations. How many people had died because of this man? Why? Chen asked. Her voice shook with suppressed rage. Morrison laughed. A bitter, broken sound. Why? Money, Commander. The same reason anyone does anything. The Navy pays shit. I spent 20 years serving my country and I can barely afford my mortgage. Meanwhile, politicians send us into pointless wars and contractors get rich off our blood. So you sold information to arms dealers. I sold information to businessmen who paid better than my government. Morrison met Creel's eyes. You want to judge me? Fine. But don't pretend the system isn't broken. Don't pretend we're actually serving something worthwhile. Creel's face could have been carved from ice. Rodriguez was 20 years old. He died because of you. Rodriguez died because we invaded a sovereign nation without a declaration of war to assassinate someone who never hurt a single American. Morrison's voice rose. Don't put that on me. Put it on the politicians who keep sending us to die for nothing. You warned Volkov we were coming. I provided information to a client. What he did with it was his business. Elena spoke for the first time. You knew we'd be walking into a trap. You knew Marines would die. Morrison looked at her. I knew there was a possibility, but there's always a possibility. That's what we sign up for. Not betrayal from our own people. Everyone betrays everyone eventually, Chief. You'll learn that. He leaned back. You're investigating me now, being the good soldier, following orders. But someday you'll realize the orders are bullshit. The mission is bullshit. And the only thing that matters is taking care of yourself because no one else will. Creel stood up. Get him out of my sight. The guards hauled Morrison to his feet. As they dragged him toward the door, he looked back at Elena. You think you won something here? He said. You didn't. You just learned how the world really works. Welcome to the show. Then he was gone. The three of them stood in the interrogation room in silence. After a while, Chen spoke. We'll need to review every operation Morrison had access to. Figure out what else he compromised. That'll take months, Creel said. Yes, sir. He looked at Elena. You did good work, Chief. Damn good work. You saw something everyone else missed, and you followed it until you found the truth. Rodriguez is still dead, sir. Yes, and Morrison's in a cell. That won't bring Rodriguez back, but it might save the next one. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Get some rest, Chief. Tomorrow we start cleaning up this mess. But tonight, you earned a break. He left. Chen put a hand on Elena's shoulder. He's right. You should rest. I'm not sure I can. Try anyway. Elena walked back to berthing in a daze. The corridors felt different now. How many other people were like Morrison? How many other betrayals were hidden in plain sight? She climbed into her rack and lay there, staring at the bottom of the bunk above her. Jamie appeared after a few minutes. Heard you caught a traitor. Yeah. That's pretty incredible. Doesn't feel incredible. Jamie was quiet for a moment. You know what I think? I think you're exhausted and traumatized and you just did something really hard. And right now you can't see past the cost. But eventually you'll be able to see what you saved. All the future operations that won't be compromised. All the lives that won't be lost because Morrison can't sell any more secrets. Maybe. Definitely. Jamie climbed into her own rack. Sleep, Elena. That's an order from someone with absolutely no authority to give you orders. Elena closed her eyes. This time, sleep came. But it didn't last long. At 0347 hours, the alarm woke the entire ship. Elena jolted awake, disoriented. The 1MC system was screaming. General quarters, all hands man your battle stations. This is not a drill. She hit the deck running, pulling on her uniform as she moved. Around her, the berthing area was chaos, people scrambling for gear, shouting questions, the organized panic of a ship going to war. Elena grabbed her equipment and ran for the TOC. Something had happened. Something big. And she had a sinking feeling she was about to find out exactly how valuable Morrison's information had been to people who wanted Americans dead. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started. Elena burst into the TOC, still pulling on her boots. The space was packed with personnel moving at controlled sprint, watch officers shouting coordinates, radar operators tracking contacts, the air thick with urgency, and the smell of too many people in too small a space. Commander Chen stood at the central display, her face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. General Creel was beside her, still in his skivvy shirt. No time for a proper uniform. Report, Creel barked. A radar operator spoke without looking away from his screen. Multiple surface contacts approaching from the northeast. Count as 8 vessels, moving in formation at 32 knots. Range is 40 nautical miles and closing. IFF? Negative, sir. No transponders, no response to radio hails. Chen pulled up a tactical display. 8 red icons moving in a coordinated pattern across the screen. Whoever they are, they know where we are, and they're coming straight for us. Elena pushed through the crowd to get closer. Her mind was already calculating. 8 vessels in formation, high speed, radio silent. This wasn't random. Creel's jaw tightened. What do we have in the area? Nothing, sir. Nearest carrier group is 6 hours away. We've got 2 destroyers that can be here in 90 minutes. 90 minutes might as well be 90 years. Creel studied the display. Weapons status? We've got CRAM for close-in defense, 25mm guns, small arms. Sir, we're an amphibious assault ship, not a cruiser. We're not built for this kind of engagement. Then we better hope they're not looking for a fight. But Creel's voice said he didn't believe that. Elena stared at the formation on screen. Something nagged at her. Commander, can you overlay the location of yesterday's compound? Chen frowned, but did it. A new marker appeared on the map. The attacking vessels had come from that direction. It's Volkov, Elena said quietly. Every head in the TOC turned toward her. Creel's eyes narrowed. Explain. Morrison's last transmission, 2 hours before he tried to run. He told them we'd captured one of Volkov's people, that we were investigating the leak. Elena pointed at the screen. This is retaliation, and it's a rescue attempt. They want their man back. That's a big assumption, Chief. Sir, 8 armed vessels don't just appear out of nowhere heading straight for us by coincidence. Someone told them exactly where we are. Chen's face went pale. Morrison sent the transmission before we arrested him, before we locked down his access. Which means Volkov has had hours to organize this. Elena pulled up a new screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard. If I'm right, those aren't just any boats. They're fast attack craft, probably armed with heavy weapons, maybe missiles. The radar operator spoke up. Ma'am, we're getting more data on the contacts now. Configuration suggests, yes, they match the profile for fast attack craft. Chinese-made type 037s or similar. Creel's expression darkened. 8 FACs against an assault ship. They're either suicidal or they know something we don't. They know we're alone, Chen said. They know our defensive capabilities. And thanks to Morrison, they probably know our exact position, course, and speed. The 1MC crackled overhead. All hands, man battle stations, set material condition zebra. This is not a drill. Around them, the TOC shifted into combat mode. Damage control teams reported ready. Weapons systems came online. The ship transformed from a floating city into a warship. But Elena could see it in everyone's faces. They weren't ready for this. The USS Titan was designed to land Marines, not fight surface actions against multiple armed opponents. Range to contacts? Creel asked. 35 nautical miles. At current speed, they'll be in weapons range in 40 minutes. 40 minutes to figure out how to survive. Creel turned to his operations officer. Launch the alert Seahawk. I want eyes on those boats now. Full sensor sweep, weapons, crew, anything that tells us what we're dealing with. Aye, sir. Elena's mind was racing through scenarios. 8 fast attack craft meant roughly 8 to 12 crew per boat. Call it 80 to 90 personnel total, armed with autocannons at minimum, possibly anti-ship missiles. They'd use speed and numbers to overwhelm the Titan's defenses, getting close where their smaller size made them harder to hit. Classic swarm tactics. Sir, she said, if they get within 500 meters, our defenses won't matter. They'll tear us apart. I'm aware, Chief. Creel's voice was ice, which is why we're not letting them get that close. With respect, sir, we have limited offensive capability. The CRAM is defensive. Our guns are short range. We can't stop 8 boats before at least some of them reach us. Then what do you suggest? Elena pulled up a navigation chart. We run, change course, increase speed, head toward the nearest friendly assets, force them to chase us while we call for help. Running makes us look weak. Being dead makes us look worse. Creel stared at her. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. Fair point. He turned to the officer of the deck. Come to course 090, flank speed. Get us moving toward those destroyers. The ship began to turn, engines ramping up to maximum power. Elena could feel the deck vibrate beneath her feet as the Titan accelerated. But it wasn't enough. The fast attack craft were designed for speed. The Titan wasn't. Chen pulled Elena aside, lowering her voice. We need options. Real options. Because if those boats are carrying anti-ship missiles, we're in serious trouble. How many missiles can the CRAM intercept? In theory, 11 rounds in the launcher, but we're talking simultaneous threats from multiple angles. The system wasn't designed for this. Elena's brain shifted into analysis mode. Threats, capabilities, vulnerabilities. She started sketching on a notepad, vectors, angles, probabilities. The Seahawk crew radioed back 15 minutes later. Overwatch, this is Air 1. Visual confirmation on 8 fast attack craft. Each vessel armed with dual 30mm autocannons and what appear to be C-704 anti-ship missiles. Estimate 4 missiles per boat. Chen's face went white. 32 missiles. The TOC went silent. 32 missiles against a ship with 11 interceptors and limited maneuverability. The math was brutal and unavoidable. Creel's voice cut through the quiet. Time until they're in missile range? 15 minutes, sir. 15 minutes to live or die. Elena stared at the tactical display, her mind churning through options. There had to be something, some factor they weren't seeing, some advantage they could exploit. Then it hit her. The prisoner, she said. Chen frowned. What? The man we captured. He's valuable to Volkov, valuable enough to risk 8 boats and 90 personnel. Elena looked at Creel. That's leverage. You want to use him as a hostage. I want to negotiate. Creel's expression hardened. We don't negotiate with terrorists, Chief. These aren't terrorists. They're mercenaries. Volkov's hired guns, which means they care about money, not ideology. Elena pointed at the approaching contacts. Those boats are expensive. The missiles are expensive. The crew expects to get paid. If we can make them question whether their payday is worth dying for, they won't believe we'd kill a prisoner. We don't have to kill him. We just have to threaten to. Elena met his eyes. Sir, we're outgunned and outnumbered. Conventional tactics won't work. We need to think like Volkov thinks, in terms of cost and benefit. Chen spoke up. The chief has a point. These are contractors. They'll fight if the money's right, but they won't die for principle. Creel was quiet for 10 seconds. Then, get the prisoner. Bring him to the bridge. 5 minutes later, the Russian prisoner was escorted onto the bridge by 2 Marine guards. He looked around, taking in the organized chaos, the tension in every face. His one good eye found Elena. So, they're coming for me after all. Looks like you're important, Elena said. Or expensive. Volkov does not like to lose assets he's paid for. Creel stepped forward. I need you to make a radio call. Tell your people to stand down or we'll execute you. The prisoner laughed, a short, bitter sound. You will not execute me. Geneva Conventions forbid it. Your laws forbid it. You are Americans. You follow rules. So did Captain Morrison, Elena said quietly. Right up until he sold our secrets and got our people killed. Rules are flexible when survival is on the line. The prisoner's smile faded. Creel pulled out his sidearm and chambered around. The sound was shockingly loud in the sudden quiet. I will ask you one more time, he said. Make the call. The prisoner studied Creel's face. Whatever he saw there made him reconsider. If I do this, Volkov will kill me anyway. For being weak. For cooperating. Maybe, Elena said. Or maybe he'll be grateful you saved him $70 million worth of boats and missiles. Contractors can be replaced. Money can't. The prisoner considered this, then slowly nodded. What do I say? They brought him to the radio. The communications officer set up the frequency, an open channel the attack boats would be monitoring. The prisoner took the handset, spoke in rapid Russian. Elena couldn't understand the words, but she could hear the tone. Calm. Rational. Explaining the situation. A voice responded. Also Russian. Angry. The prisoner said something else, gestured at Creel's pistol. His voice took on a pleading quality that might have been real or might have been performance. Another voice came on, different from the first. This one sounded older, more controlled. The prisoner spoke again, then handed the radio to Creel. He wants to speak with your commander. Creel took the handset. This is Major General Harlan Creel, United States Marine Corps. To whom am I speaking? The voice that responded spoke accented but clear English. General, my name is not important. What is important is that you have something that belongs to my employer. Your employer attacked U.S. forces. The man we captured is a prisoner of war. That is a matter of legal interpretation. I prefer to think of him as stolen property. Then you've come a long way for property that's about to be worthless. A pause. You threaten to kill him? I'm telling you the facts. You continue your approach, you fire on this vessel, and your property dies, along with a lot of your expensive equipment and your personnel. That's bad business. Or I sink your ship and recover him from the wreckage. You might, but it'll cost you. How many boats are you willing to lose? How many men? Because we will fight, and we will take some of you with us. Creel's voice was cold steel. Is one prisoner worth that price? Silence on the other end. Elena watched the tactical display. The boats had slowed slightly. Not stopped, but no longer closing at maximum speed. They were thinking about it. Finally, the voice came back. What do you propose? Turn around. Leave our operational area. We'll transfer your man to international waters in 48 hours. Neutral exchange. No weapons, no tricks. And if we refuse? Then we find out how much Volkov pays death benefits. Another long silence. Elena counted her heartbeats. 12, 15, 20. Very well, General, we will withdraw. But the exchange will happen in 24 hours, not 48. And if there is deception, there won't be. You have my word. The word of an American. How valuable. The contempt was thick. 24 hours. We will send coordinates. The radio went dead. On the tactical display, the boats began to turn. Slowly at first, then more decisively. Within 2 minutes, they were heading away from the Titan, back toward open ocean. The TOC erupted in relief. People laughed, clapped each other on the back. The tension bled out of the room like air from a balloon. But Creel's expression didn't change. He looked at Elena. That was a hell of a gamble, Chief. It was math, sir. Probability and psychology. It was a guess. A good one, but still a guess. He holstered his pistol. You were willing to stake all our lives on reading the mind of a mercenary commander you've never met. Would you rather I hadn't? Creel almost smiled. No, but next time maybe run it by me before you volunteer us all for high-stakes poker. He walked away, already barking orders about securing from general quarters. Chen approached Elena. That was either brilliant or insane. Probably both. Definitely both. Chen lowered her voice. You realize what you just did, right? You negotiated with hostile forces, promised to release a prisoner, made a deal that SOCOM is going to have opinions about. I'm aware. And you did it anyway. Would you have preferred the alternative? Chen shook her head. No, but brace yourself. The paperwork on this is going to be a nightmare. The prisoner was escorted back to the brig. As he passed Elena, he spoke quietly. You are either very brave or very stupid. I get that a lot. It is a compliment. Only the brave and the stupid survive in this world. The cautious die without anyone noticing. Then he was gone. Elena stood in the TOC as the watch team secured from battle stations. Her hands were shaking again, delayed adrenaline. She gripped the edge of a console until they steadied. Jamie found her 20 minutes later in the passageway. Heard you talk down 8 attack boats with nothing but words and attitude. Something like that. Want to talk about it? Not really. Want coffee that tastes like diesel fuel and regret? Always. They went to the galley. It was nearly empty. Most of the crew still at battle stations or too wired to eat. Elena forced down coffee and half a sandwich while Jamie talked about nothing important. It helped. At 0800 hours, Elena was summoned to a video conference. Creel, Chen, and 3 senior officers from SOCOM on screen. They did not look happy. A colonel whose nameplate read Fisher spoke first. General Creel, I've read your initial report. Can you explain to me why you negotiated with hostile forces without authorization? Because I had 8 attack boats about to sink my ship and 90 seconds to make a decision, Creel said flatly. Sir, the proper procedure would have been to request what? Permission to not die? Creel leaned forward. Colonel, with all due respect, I had no time for proper procedure. I had a tactical situation that required immediate action. You promised to release a prisoner. I promised to exchange a prisoner in international waters. under controlled conditions, which we will do, and we will have a surveillance package in place to track where he goes and who picks him up. This prisoner knows operational details. He can lead us to Volkov. Fisher didn't look convinced. This was still outside normal protocol. Normal protocol doesn't account for traitorous officers leaking our positions to arms dealers who send attack boats. Creel's voice hardened. And before you criticize my tactical decisions, maybe someone should explain how Captain Morrison sold secrets for 3 years without anyone noticing. That shut Fisher up. Another officer, a Navy captain, spoke up. General Creel, the investigation into Captain Morrison is ongoing, but that doesn't excuse nothing excuses anything, Creel interrupted. But you weren't there. You weren't watching 32 missiles bearing down on your ship, so don't Monday morning quarterback decisions made under fire. Silence from the screen. Then a third voice spoke, a woman Elena didn't recognize. General, I'm Admiral Vance. I'm less concerned with the negotiation than I am with how this intelligence leak happened under our noses. I understand Chief Voss was instrumental in uncovering it. Yes, ma'am. She identified the pattern, tracked down the evidence, and made the case that led to Morrison's arrest. I'd like to speak with her. Creel gestured Elena forward. She stepped into frame, acutely aware of being an enlisted person addressing flag officers. Chief Voss, Admiral Vance said, walk me through your analysis. How did you identify Morrison? Elena organized her thoughts. Ma'am, it started with the compound assault. The enemy was too well prepared. That led me to look for information leaks. I cross-referenced who had access to operational plans with who had means to communicate externally. When the second encrypted transmission was sent, I narrowed the location and checked access logs. Morrison's name appeared in conjunction with suspicious financial activity. The pattern was clear enough to warrant investigation. And you recommended his arrest? I recommended he be questioned, ma'am. He chose to run, which confirmed his guilt. Vance studied her through the screen. You're an intelligence specialist, correct? Not an investigator. Correct, ma'am. So you were operating outside your designated role. Elena's stomach tightened. I was following the intelligence where it led, ma'am. That's what analysts do. Yes, but you also made tactical recommendations during the compound assault. You engaged enemy combatants. You negotiated with hostile forces. Vance leaned forward. For someone whose job is supposed to be analysis, you've been remarkably operational. Elena wasn't sure if this was criticism or something else. The situation required adaptation, ma'am. The situation required courage and clear thinking. Vance's expression softened slightly. I'm not reprimanding you, Chief. I'm offering you a position. The TOC went silent. Ma'am, Elena managed. NCIS has been investigating Morrison for 6 months without finding anything. You did it in 2 days. That suggests either remarkable luck or remarkable skill. Vance paused. I don't believe in luck. I'm forming a new counterintelligence unit. Small team, high clearance, focused on internal security threats. I want you as lead analyst. Elena's mind went blank. Ma'am, I'm not qualified for... You just caught a traitor who fooled everyone else. You identified attack patterns under fire. You talked down 8 armed boats with a bluff and psychology. Vance's voice was firm. You're more qualified than half the people we have doing this work now. And you're willing to question authority when the evidence demands it. That's rare. Admiral, I'm just an analyst. No, Chief. You're a lot more than that. You just haven't realized it yet. Vance sat back. This isn't an order, it's an offer, but it comes with a promotion to senior chief and a transfer to a joint task force based out of Virginia. You'd be working cases across all branches, high profile, high stakes. Elena looked at Chen. Her commander's expression was unreadable. Can I have time to think about it, ma'am? Elena asked. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer expires. Vance's image shifted slightly. General Creel, proceed with the prisoner exchange as planned. But I want full surveillance. If this leads us to Volkov, maybe something good comes out of this mess. The screen went dark. The TOC was silent for 5 seconds. Then Creel spoke. Chief, you're dismissed. Elena left in a daze. She found herself on the flight deck, staring out at the ocean. The sun was rising now, painting the water in shades of orange and gold, beautiful and completely indifferent to the violence that had nearly erupted here hours ago. Footsteps behind her. Booker. "Heard you got offered a promotion," he said. "News travels fast." "Always does." He leaned against the rail beside her. "You gonna take it?" "I don't know." "Why not?" "Sounds like a good gig." Elena was quiet for a moment. "What I did yesterday, catching Morrison, talking down those boats, I'm not sure it was skill. Might have just been luck. And if I take this job and it turns out I'm not as good as they think, then you fail. So what? So people die." Booker turned to look at her. "People die anyway, Chief. Rodriguez died. Those 2 guys you shot died. That's the job. You can spend your life afraid of making mistakes, or you can accept that mistakes happen and do your best anyway. Easy for you to say. You've been doing this for years, and I still fuck up regularly." He shrugged. "The difference is I don't let it paralyze me. I learn, adapt, move forward. You should do the same. I'm scared I'm not good enough." "Yeah, well, join the club. We all are." He pushed off the rail. "But you know what? You've proven yourself 3 times in 3 days. Found a traitor, saved lives in combat, prevented a massacre at sea. That's not luck. That's skill and guts. So maybe start believing what everyone else already sees." He walked away, leaving Elena alone with the sunrise. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of reports, debriefs, and preparation for the prisoner exchange. Elena barely slept. When she did, she dreamed of Rodriguez and Morrison and 8 boats full of missiles. The exchange happened at 1400 hours in international waters, 30 miles from the nearest land. The Titan stopped engines, and a small boat approached from the north. Elena watched from the bridge as the Russian prisoner was brought out on deck. He looked smaller somehow in civilian clothes instead of combat gear. More human. He was placed in a rigid-hull, inflatable boat with 2 Marines as escorts. The RHB motored out to the halfway point between the Titan and the approaching vessel. The exchange took less than 5 minutes. The prisoner transferred to the other boat. No words, no drama. Just a man changing vessels. Then both boats returned to their respective ships. Elena tracked the departing vessel on radar. A P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft was already shadowing it, recording everything. With luck, it would lead them to Volkov. That evening, Elena sat in her rack with her notebook open. She'd been staring at a blank page for 20 minutes. Finally, she started writing. Rodriguez, K.I. 2 enemy combatants, KIA. Captain Morrison, arrested for treason. 8 attack boats, deterred 1 prisoner, exchanged. Admiral Vance, offered promotion. She studied the list, tried to find meaning in it, tried to see a pattern that made sense. Jamie climbed into the adjacent rack. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Overthinking. I can hear the gears grinding from here." Elena closed the notebook. "I got offered a job. Counterintelligence, important work, promotion, everything I should want. But I'm not sure I'm the person they think I am." Jamie rolled onto her side to look at Elena. "You know what your problem is. You're so busy being humble that you can't see what you actually accomplished. You caught a spy. You prevented a battle. You've proven yourself a dozen different ways, but you keep waiting for permission to believe it. I just don't want to be overconfident. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance. Confidence is knowing what you can do. Arrogance is thinking you can do anything." Jamie's voice softened. "You've earned confidence, Elena. It's okay to claim it." Elena lay back on her rack, staring at the bottom of the bunk above her. Someone had written a quote there in permanent marker. "The only easy day was yesterday." She thought about that. Thought about Rodriguez dying because she'd been too quiet about her doubts. Thought about Morrison betraying them for 3 years because no one questioned him. Thought about 8 boats that could have killed them all if she hadn't been willing to gamble. Maybe Jamie was right. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for permission. At 0900 the next morning, Elena requested a meeting with Commander Chen. They met in Chen's small office, barely larger than a closet, crammed with paperwork and coffee cups. "What can I do for you, Chief?" Chen asked. "I'm accepting Admiral Vance's offer, ma'am." Chen studied her face. "You're sure?" No, but I don't think I ever will be. So I might as well act anyway. A small smile crossed Chen's face. That might be the smartest thing I've heard all week. She pulled out a form. I'll process the paperwork. You'll transfer in 2 weeks once we make port. Thank you, ma'am, for everything, for believing in me when nobody else did. I believed in your potential. You did the work to realize it. Chen stood and extended her hand. It's been an honor, Chief Voss. They shook hands. Elena left the office and made her way to the flight deck. It was empty except for a few maintenance personnel. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions. She pulled out her notebook one last time, turned to a fresh page, wrote 3 words. Don't be quiet. Then she closed the book and headed below deck. There was work to do, reports to file, goodbyes to say, a new life to prepare for. But for the first time in days, maybe years, Elena felt like she was moving in the right direction, not because someone told her to, not because it was expected, but because she'd earned the right to choose her own path, and that made all the difference. The USS Titan made port in Bahrain 12 days later. Elena stood on the flight deck watching the harbor approach, a sprawl of white buildings against brown desert, cranes and cargo ships, and the organized chaos of a major naval base. The air was hot and dry, so different from the ocean wind she'd gotten used to. Around her, sailors secured equipment and prepared for docking. The ship felt different now, lighter somehow, despite everything that had happened. Or maybe Elena just felt different and was projecting it onto steel and rivets. Chief Voss. She turned. General Creel stood 10 feet away, hands clasped behind his back. He was in his dress uniform now, crisp and perfect, all those ribbons catching the sunlight. Sir? Elena came to attention. At ease. He walked to the rail beside her. We'll be here for 48 hours. Resupply, minor repairs, personnel transfers. You'll fly out tomorrow morning for Virginia. Yes, sir. Creel was quiet for a moment, watching the port grow closer. I owe you an apology, Chief. Elena blinked. Sir? The flight deck, 2 weeks ago. I mocked your weapon, questioned your competence, made you feel small in front of 200 personnel. His jaw tightened. That was unprofessional, and it was wrong. You were testing me, sir. No, I was being an arrogant ass who thought he knew better. Creel turned to look at her. I spent 38 years in uniform. I've commanded thousands of Marines, and in all that time I've learned that the most dangerous thing a leader can do is assume they're always right. Elena didn't know what to say to that. You saved lives on this deployment, Creel continued, multiple times, in multiple ways. You proved that quiet competence matters more than loud confidence, and you did it while people like me were doubting you. He extended his hand. So thank you, Chief Voss, for being right when it mattered, and for having the courage to speak up even when no one wanted to listen. Elena shook his hand. His grip was firm but not crushing. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. You weren't entirely wrong. I was carrying too much gear. I did freeze up when we first took contact. I made mistakes. Elena met his eyes. But I learned from them, and I think that matters more than being perfect. Creel's expression softened. You're going to do well in Virginia, Chief. They're lucky to have you. He walked away, leaving Elena alone at the rail. The ship docked 90 minutes later. Elena spent the afternoon processing paperwork, packing her gear, saying goodbyes to people she'd served with for 6 months. Most were routine, handshakes and good lucks, but some hit harder. Jamie found her in berthing after dinner. So, this is really happening. You're leaving. Yeah. Virginia's nice, I hear. Never been, but people say good things. Elena smiled. You're terrible at goodbyes. I know. Jamie sat down on the rack beside her. I'm going to miss you. Having someone around who thinks too much and feels too deeply makes the rest of us look normal. You are normal. Exactly. Which is boring. Jamie's voice dropped. Seriously, though, I'm proud of you for taking the job, for not talking yourself out of it. I'm still not sure I made the right choice. Nobody ever is. That's what makes it a choice. Jamie stood up. Come on. Booker's organizing a thing at the base club. Sort of a going-away party. You're required to attend. I don't really do parties. Too bad. You're coming anyway. The club was crowded and loud. full of sailors and Marines blowing off steam after 2 weeks at sea. Music pounded from speakers. People shouted conversations over the noise. It was overwhelming and chaotic and exactly what Elena usually avoided. But tonight felt different. Booker found her at the bar and handed her a beer. "Heard you're abandoning us for the spook world. Counterintelligence isn't exactly spook work." "Close enough." He raised his bottle. "To Chief Voss, who proved that brains beat brawn." "Sometimes." They drank. Kim appeared, then Davis, then Turner, the young Marine who'd been Elena's spotter during the compound assault. They talked about nothing important, made jokes, told stories, normal people doing normal things. Elena stayed for 2 hours, longer than she'd planned. As she was getting ready to leave, Booker pulled her aside. "Hey, real talk for a second." "Okay." "What you did out there, catching Morrison, handling those boats, that wasn't beginner's luck. That was instinct and skill." His voice was serious. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not your new bosses, not yourself. You belong in this world." "Thanks, Sergeant. And one more thing." He hesitated. "Rodriguez, the kid who died, that wasn't on you." Elena's throat tightened. "I could have pushed harder about my concerns. Could have, should have, would have. That's all bullshit." Booker's voice was firm, but not unkind. "We all make calls based on the information we have. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But you can't carry every death like it's your fault, or you'll never survive this job." "How do you do it? Carry on after losing people?" "Honestly, I don't know. Some days are easier than others." He looked away. "But I remember that they chose this. Rodriguez knew the risks. We all do. And the best way to honor them is to keep doing the job they died for." Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. She left the club and walked back toward the ship. The base was quiet now, just a few personnel moving between buildings. Overhead, stars were starting to appear, bright and sharp in the desert air. Her phone buzzed. A message from Commander Chen. "Conference call in the morning before you fly out, 700. Admiral Vance wants to brief you personally on your new assignment." Elena typed back a quick acknowledgement and kept walking. She found herself at the ship's memorial wall, a small plaque listing everyone who'd died serving aboard the USS Titan over its 30 years of service. Rodriguez's name had been added at the bottom. Fresh engraving, still bright against the tarnished bronze. She stood there for a long time, just reading names. Strangers who'd died before she was born. People who'd made sacrifices she'd never know about. "Thought I'd find you here." Commander Chen walked up beside her. "Can't sleep?" "Not really." They stood in silence for a while. "I got the full report on Morrison," Chen said finally, "from his debriefs and the evidence we recovered. He'd been selling intelligence for 3 years, 13 operations compromised, 42 deaths that can be directly attributed to his leaks." Elena felt sick. 42? Could have been a lot more. If you hadn't caught him when you did, who knows how much more damage he would have done? Chen's voice was tight. "They're charging him with treason, espionage, conspiracy. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison, if he's lucky." "Does that make it better, knowing he'll be punished?" "No, but it helps." Chen turned to look at Elena. "You did something important here. Not just catching Morrison. You reminded everyone that we have to police ourselves. That we can't just assume everyone's loyal because they wear the uniform. I didn't mean to make a statement. I was just following the evidence. Sometimes that's all it takes." Chen pulled an envelope from her pocket. "This came for you. From Rodriguez's family." Elena's hands shook as she took it. "How did they—" "I reached out to them. Told them about the investigation. About how you caught the person responsible for compromising their son's mission." Chen paused. "I thought they should know." Elena opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a single handwritten letter. "Dear Chief Voss, Commander Chen told us about what you did. About catching the traitor who got our Miguel killed. We wanted you to know that it matters to us. That someone cared enough to find the truth. Miguel talked about you in his last letter home. Said there was an analyst on the ship who carried a big rifle and didn't take shit from anyone. He thought that was funny. Cool, he said. We're glad he knew you. Glad someone like you was there. His mother wanted me to tell you something. She said, don't blame yourself for not saving him. Just make sure his death counted for something. We think you already did. Thank you. Carlos Rodriguez, father. Elena read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. Chen's hand settled on her shoulder. You okay? No, but I will be. They walked back to the ship together. Elena climbed into her rack one last time, the letter tucked safely in her notebook. She slept better than she had in weeks. The conference call started exactly at 700. Elena sat in a small communications room with Chen while Admiral Vance's face filled the screen. Good morning, Chief Voss, Commander Chen. Vance looked tired but sharp. I wanted to brief you both on recent developments before Chief Voss transfers. Yes, ma'am, Elena said. First, the surveillance package on our released prisoner paid off. He led us to a compound in Yemen where Volkov was hiding. Joint Task Force raided it yesterday. Volkov is in custody. Elena sat up straighter. That's incredible, ma'am. It is, and it happened because you pushed for that prisoner exchange, because you understood that sometimes the intelligence value of letting someone go outweighs the satisfaction of keeping them locked up. Vance leaned forward. Volkov's computers are a treasure trove. We're getting names, operations, financial networks. This is going to hurt arms dealers across 3 continents. What about Morrison, ma'am? Chen asked. Has he provided any additional intelligence? He's cooperating now, trying to reduce his sentence. Vance's expression hardened. He gave us a list of other potentially compromised personnel. We're investigating quietly. It's going to take months to sort out the full extent of the damage. How many others? Elena asked quietly. At least 4, possibly more. Vance paused. This is bigger than we thought, Chief, and that's why your new job is so important. We need people who can see these patterns, who can connect dots that others miss. Elena nodded slowly. I understand, ma'am. Good. You'll report to the Joint Counterintelligence Task Force headquarters in Virginia next Monday. They're expecting you. Your security clearances have been upgraded. You'll be briefed on several ongoing investigations immediately. Vance's expression softened slightly. This is important work, Chief. Difficult work. But you've proven you can handle it. I'll do my best, ma'am. That's all anyone can ask. Vance glanced at something off-screen. Commander Chen, a moment alone with Chief Voss, please. Chen looked surprised, but nodded. Yes, ma'am. She left the room, closing the door behind her. Vance waited until they were alone. Chief, I want to be direct with you. This job will be hard. You'll investigate people you've served with, people you respect. Some will be innocent, and you'll still ruin their reputations just by asking questions. Others will be guilty, and you'll make enemies by exposing them. I understand, ma'am. I'm not sure you do, not fully. Vance's voice was gentle, but firm. You'll work cases where you can't tell anyone what you're doing, where you can't defend yourself against accusations, where the only reward for success is knowing you prevented something bad from happening. Elena thought about Rodriguez, about the 42 people who died because Morrison had been selling secrets, about all the deaths that might be prevented if she did this job right. Ma'am, with respect, I'm not looking for rewards. I'm looking for purpose. Vance studied her face for a long moment. Then she smiled. You're going to do just fine, Chief Voss. Welcome to the team. The screen went dark. Elena sat alone in the communications room, processing everything. In 72 hours, her entire life would change. New job, new city, new responsibilities. But underneath the nervousness, she felt something else. Certainty. For the first time in her career, maybe her life, she was choosing a path because she believed in it, not because someone told her to or because it was expected. That felt right. She left the communications room and found Chen waiting in the passageway. Well, her commander asked, Volkov's in custody, and I'm officially terrified of my new job. Chen laughed. That's healthy. Fear keeps you sharp. She became serious. Elena, I know I've said this before, but I need you to hear it. You're ready for this. You've proven it. Now you just have to believe it. Working on that. Good. Keep working. Chen extended her hand. It's been an honor serving with you, Chief. They shook hands. Then, impulsively, Elena pulled her into a brief hug. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything. Elena spent her last day on the ship cleaning out her workspace and finishing reports. At 1600 hours, she carried her sea bag down to the quarterdeck. General Creel was there, along with Booker, Kim, Davis, and Jamie. A small formation, unexpected but appreciated. Creel spoke first. Chief Voss, on behalf of the USS Titan and all who served aboard her, thank you for your service. You upheld the highest traditions of the Navy and the Marine Corps. You have our respect. The group saluted. Elena returned it, her throat tight. Booker stepped forward. We got you something. He handed her a small wooden plaque. Every operator needs one. Tradition. Elena looked at it. The plaque was simple, just her name, rank, and a single sentence. She proved them wrong. Her eyes burned. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay in touch, Kim said. Let us know how the spook world treats you. I will. Jamie hugged her tight. Don't become a stranger, and don't let them change you. I'll try. Elena walked down the gangway with her sea bag over her shoulder. At the bottom, she turned back one last time to look at the ship. The USS Titan sat massive and gray against the blue harbor water. People moved across her deck, tiny figures going about their work, life continuing. Elena turned and walked away. The flight to Virginia took 19 hours with connections. Elena slept in airports, drank bad coffee, and read briefing documents on her tablet. The new job came with immediate homework, 3 active investigations she'd be joining, 24 personnel files to review, threat assessments from 6 different regions. She worked until her eyes couldn't focus anymore, then worked some more. The plane landed at Reagan National just after dawn. Elena collected her bags and took a taxi to a hotel near the task force headquarters. Checked in, showered, changed into a fresh uniform. Stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was the same person who'd stood on the USS Titan's deck 2 weeks ago. Same face, same rank insignia. But something in the eyes was different, harder, more certain, less afraid. She grabbed her cover and headed out. The Joint Counterintelligence Task Force headquarters was housed in an unmarked building 20 miles outside D.C. Security was tight. Multiple checkpoints, biometric scanners, armed guards who looked like they meant business. Elena was cleared through and escorted to a conference room on the 3rd floor. 6 people waited inside, a mix of Navy, Army, Air Force, and civilian intelligence personnel. They looked up as she entered. A woman in her 40s stood and extended her hand. Chief Voss, I'm Commander Sarah Reeves. Welcome to JCITF. Admiral Vance speaks highly of you. Thank you, ma'am. Have a seat. We've got a lot to cover. The briefing lasted 4 hours. 3 active investigations into potential leaks, 200 personnel under suspicion, thousands of pages of financial records, communications logs, and intelligence assessments to analyze. It was overwhelming and complicated and exactly what Elena had trained for. When the briefing ended, Reeves walked her to her new office, a small space with a desk, computer, and secure filing cabinet. You'll work mostly alone, Reeves said. Report findings to me. Trust no one until we clear them. The nature of this work is isolating. I understand. Do you? Reeves studied her. Admiral Vance told me what happened on the Titan. You caught a traitor who'd operated for years. That takes skill, but it also takes a willingness to be suspicious of everyone, to question people you serve with. She paused. Can you do that? Elena thought about Morrison, about the Marines who died because someone they trusted had betrayed them. Yes, ma'am, I can. Reeves nodded. Good. Get settled. We start fresh tomorrow at 0600. Elena spent the rest of the day organizing her office and reviewing files. At 1800 hours, she walked to a small apartment she'd rented sight unseen 3 days earlier. It was empty except for basic furniture, a bed, a couch, a table. She unpacked her sea bag, hung her uniforms in the closet, set her notebook on the nightstand. Then she sat on the couch and just breathed. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jamie. How's the new gig? You a super spy yet? Elena smiled and typed back. Not quite, but working on it. Another message appeared. This one from Booker. Don't forget where you came from, and don't let the bastards grind you down. Then one from Kim. We're proud of you. Rodriguez would be too. Elena read the messages twice. Then she pulled out her notebook and opened it to a fresh page. She started a new list. Things I learned. Being underestimated is not the same as being weak. Quiet competence matters more than loud confidence. Trust your analysis even when others doubt it. Fear is useful, paralysis is not. The hardest thing isn't being right. It's speaking up when you are. She studied the list for a long moment, then added one final line. Don't be quiet. Elena closed the notebook and looked around her empty apartment. This was her life now, new city, new job, new challenges. But she wasn't starting from nothing. She was starting with proof that she could do hard things, that she could face doubt and fear and pressure and still come out the other side. That was worth more than any amount of certainty. Her phone buzzed one more time. A message from Commander Chen. Saw the news about Volkov's capture. They're calling it one of the biggest counterintelligence wins in years. That started with you refusing to stay quiet about what you saw. Remember that when the new job gets hard. Remember that your voice matters. Proud of you, Elena. Elena stared at the message until her vision blurred. Then she stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the Virginia skyline. Somewhere out there were people who needed to be stopped, threats that needed to be identified, patterns that needed to be recognized, and she was the person who would find them. Not because she was the strongest, not because she was the loudest, not because she was perfect, but because she was willing to see what others missed, to ask questions when others stayed silent, to trust her instincts when everyone else said she was wrong. That was enough. It had to be. Elena pulled out her phone and sent a message to Admiral Vance. Ma'am, reporting as ordered. Ready to begin. The response came back immediately. Outstanding, Chief Voss. See you tomorrow at 0600. Welcome to the fight. Elena set down her phone and looked at her reflection in the dark window. The woman staring back was tired and uncertain, and more than a little scared, but she was also ready to prove herself again, ready to do work that mattered, ready to be the voice that refused to stay quiet when quiet was the easy choice. Rodriguez had died because someone stayed quiet about their betrayal. Elena would spend the rest of her career making sure that never happened again. She closed the blinds, set her alarm for 500, and climbed into bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new doubts, new opportunities to fail or succeed. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, Elena Voss slept without fear, because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. The people who change everything aren't always the ones everyone expects. Sometimes they're the ones everyone underestimates. The quiet ones who see what others miss, who speak when others stay silent, who act when everyone else hesitates. The ones who prove that being doubted isn't a weakness, it's fuel. Sometimes the ones everyone doubts are the only ones who can change everything when it matters most.